Conference Australia 2013, and our first speaker for this session is going to be Michael Meeks. Michael Meeks says, Michael Meeks is a Christian and enthusiastic believer in free software. Which one are you more enthusiastic about or a believer in? He very much enjoys working for SUSE, where as a Linux desktop architect he tries to understand and nudge the direction of our Linux investment. He has appreciated working on various pieces of infrastructure and applications over the years, from GNOME Office through component technologies to evolution, accessibility, MIGO, and most laterally LibreOffice, which we'll be talking about today. The title of the presentation, 2 Years of LibreOffice. Can everyone please give Michael a very warm welcome.
What an introduction. You know, how do I follow that? I don't know. Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. Excellent. So if I touch this, I notice that changing orientation changes the volume thing. This is what I'm going to say. So there you are. That helps the people on the web find what they're doing. Well, there you go. So one of the things that we've been doing is a lot of work. And one of the things we're most interested in is changing the philosophy of LibreOffice or the code base to say that changes are welcome. We love people to change the code. You know, send us your patches, and we will work hard to integrate them, which I think is something new. And that's shown some really impressive results. So this is number of active contributors a month. So we try and track how many people are contributing. And I guess this is Oracle. Sadly, left the project. But this blue stuff here are new people contributing to the project that we'd never seen before. So when we launched, suddenly, bang, loads of people came. So there was something about LibreOffice that makes it just that much more compelling than what was OpenOffice. And people are interested in contributing, and they get their code in. Actually, this is code that's actually committed and in the product. So that's kind of cool. And we're pleased about that. Obviously, it's always good to grow the graph. Another thing we're pleased about is just the sheer diversity of people there. So, from the government of Munich to, of course, Red Hat and SUSE, great big contributors, Intel, bits from IBM, the Apache project, and so on. So lots and lots of different guys contributing. Oh. And that's resulted in, lots of new features, lots of functionality. And one of the things we measure is the number of unique IP addresses each week that we get. These are new ones we've never seen. Of course, there's some degree of DSL rollover. There's lots of people who are using NAT. The whole of China is only one IP address. So that's kind of a shame. So we just like to add about 1 billion to our numbers. But and of course, this doesn't cope with Linux downloads, which. So our new IPs address each week in excess of Fedora plus SUSE, with a good margin on top of that. We don't know what the Ubuntu is, but we expect that there are a lot of downloads of that as well. So in terms of the number of people getting LibreOffice, there's really a large number, and these are going up. As you see, the vast majority of those are Windows, a great chunk of Mac, and then some Linux, which we think represents the market. But this, again, doesn't measure the Linux distributions. It's the phone home feature that we use to collect that data. So that's encouraging. Clearly we have a huge branding cliff to climb to tell people about our cool new project and free software and so on. One of the ways we do that is we try and get stuff out quickly. So this is kind of a boilerplate slide. The punchline is that when you get your Linux distro, you should get something really good in it. So the 0.2 release is what is typically synchronized with the 6th monthly cycle. So one of the things we're trying to do is to get, one of the things GNOME was trying to do was to get other people to line up with its release cycle, and with some success. Seemingly, I guess Ubuntu, Fedora, LibreOffice, and I think the kernel has a 3-monthly schedule. So again, the kernel is kind of lined up with this. So hopefully, the whole world will move to a place, where. Because it's really soul destroying, isn't it? Having the latest and greatest thing that you release a week after, the distro ship it, because then it's another 6 months till anyone's actually using it in anger. So I'm going quickly. We'll see. LibreOffice 4. So this is just some of the new features, just to give you a bit of a taste for the different kinds of things we've been doing. So one of the things that people keep banging on at us about is interoperability, sending your slides to other people, sending your documents, and getting what you expect out the other end. If you're doing a big deployment, incidentally, if anyone's crept in here that isn't a hacker, actually let's do a quick poll. Who is a hacker? I'm a hacker. That's cool. And who is a sort of sysadmin deployer type user of, awesome, okay, you guys are cool. I'll give you a brief tip. So lots of people, when they start to think about deploying LibreOffice in big enterprises, they make one elementary mistake, which is to think that it costs money. So when you are, now of course service costs money, but when you're deploying Microsoft Office in a heterogeneous environment, you have Microsoft Office and LibreOffice, and so the thought is, well, leave loads of people on Microsoft Office, move segments to LibreOffice, and then they can just interoperate by the interoperability support, right? Seems like a good plan. Unfortunately, this is actually a terrible plan. Because there's always going to be problems in Microsoft's ODF support. There is always going to be problems in our XLSX or whatever support. We are constantly working to improve it, and there are constantly problems. It's like one of those lifelong works. So what the best thing to do is to simply deploy LibreOffice everywhere, particularly on Windows. Of course, all those Windows machines should be running free software. And then the few people that actually need to stick with, say, Microsoft Excel, they have some weirdo, macro-riddled power thing that we can't yet cope with, they should have 2 Office suites on their machine. So the key is to remember that you can install LibreOffice next to Microsoft Office on Windows, and it still works. And then, of course, you use the interoperability filters one way. You load your documents, you convert them to ODF, you exchange across your enterprise in ODF, and suddenly you're substantially freed from all of that vendor lock-in, and you don't have any interop problems. Anyhow, what is this? Aha! Oh, this is a nice interop feature around comments. So lots of people will complain about this. In Word, you can stick a comment for a range, and you never could in LibreOffice. It was for a point. And people don't comment about points, they comment about chunks of text. So this is you can imagine the round-trip problems when you don't have that feature in the core. Your comments get mangled, now they don't. And interestingly, paid for by the Open Source Business Alliance, which is kind of nice. So these people got together and aggregated loads of different companies, and in fact governments in this case, government agencies, and each of them paid a small amount of money. They all met together, agreed which the most important bugs were, and then they funded several companies to actually go and fix those. And so we love that, because that helps build the ecosystem around the project, and it's just fundamentally good for attracting features to the project. So here we go, RTF. Well, so this is the 3.6 version over here, which is looking stylish, and the 4.0. So just a thumbnail of... And actually, we could construct hundreds of these documents. In some cases, so for example, the latest Microsoft Office 2000 and whatever it is, produces invalid zip files. So all of their XLSX files actually slightly invalid. And so there was, some hypersensitive check there, and the net result was you couldn't load any of these documents at all. It would just go, like that. So little fixes like this making a massive, massive impact, and lots of them all over the board. So depending on what your document has in it, of course, we do better or worse. But RTF is very substantially improved here. Another thing is formulae, for example. I particularly love the bug with RTF whereby the first formula in the document would simply truncate the rest of the document after that. So if you don't want to, it got difficult, which probably matches a whole load of people's reading habits as well. So like, kind of good. Anyhow, so e-ink support, you have one of these horrendous tablets from the other side that, you can scribble on your documents. Now, we can import that. Again, paid for by a customer who just wanted this one feature, a small consulting company, Linedo, doing a great job. Another thing people do is that they go and they stupidly build their enterprise around, server software that runs on a single platform and is an open source. And so that creates nightmares. So one of those is SharePoint. And so lots of companies have already, locked themselves in, and of course we're trying to unlock them and encourage them into the free world. So there's a whole load of work there to do CMIS, which is a standard protocol for that, and of course that works with Alfresco, Nexo, and all these other open source content management systems. So hopefully that's cool. Another thing that we really try to do as LibreOffice is get people out of proprietary file formats. So, there are a lot of them out there, a lot of legacy ones, and loads of work has been put in the past. WordPerfect, if you remember that. We still get requests for reveal codes feature in OpenOffice, LibreOffice, which is a shame. Work support, Visio, we did last release, had a load of Visio work. Yeah, I'm going to slide about that next. WordPerfect, but Microsoft Publisher is I guess, the big new marquee attempt at this. Now there are some features missing in LibreOffice in terms of getting all these frames right, and but at least we're starting to get your data out. The text is there, you can tweak it, and you can actually print out something nice. So hopefully we can start to replace that proprietary piece. A whole load of work was done on the Visio support too. That shipped in the last release, but in this release we get pretty much everything. In terms of file formats, we support all of them, back to version 1.0 in wherever, and we even support the unreleased 2013, although I understand Microsoft started announcing the whole Office 2013 yesterday? Is it today? So yeah, so we're pretty pleased about that. That's kind of good. Yeah, and you can get stencils. Thank you. I mean, really, it's nothing to do with me. Friedrich and Valek Filipov, who's a fantastic Russian volunteer living in Canada, who sits down and reverse engineers these things. He's got a brilliant tool that allows you to introspect the structure, and yeah, just some great work there. And those libraries are all reusable. So if you want to, write a small C program to dump all the text out of something for an index or whatever, there's small standalone libraries that do that, and they've done just a great job. So, calc improvements. Yeah, well, so just looking at one component. So one of the things that the competition have is the ability to turn XML into spreadsheets. So you can look at your XML file, look at your attributes, arrange them as columns and sheets and so on, and suck them all in. And you can do that dynamically too, so you can continually re-import this stuff. So we have the first cut of that, which does a one-shot import going on. We hope to see that being done as a live stream that updates. But that's kind of quite nice for people. In terms of prettiness, people like all of these, show me the bad person in the class type, stuff. Who didn't make their grades? Who should get the, whatever. So we got a whole load of that, again done entirely by excellent volunteer Marcus Mohan, which is cool. Unfortunately, Attachmate, which is a privately held company, acquired SUSE, so I have no options anymore. But if you do, there are a whole load now of new formulae that can prove how amazingly rich or otherwise you'll be, in the future, which is quite fun. So there are a load of other fun, sort of hard to categorize one. One is the one that I'm demonstrating now with the beautiful, phone remote control, which is kind of fun via Bluetooth. So instead of using the presenter view, which is working ever better, presenter console. The problem with the presenter console, of course, is when you come to do a demo, you can't see your demo on both screens. You have to switch clone. But if you've got it on your phone, then you can clone your monitors, and life is easier for speakers, hopefully. And you can also wander around, which helps keep people awake. When the audience is starting to nod, you can do this. Anyhow, this is a Google Summer Code project by Andre Hunt, and it's kind of cool. Kind of cool. You can even use speaker notes actively usefully. One of the things I'd love one of these GPU geniuses, like, where's Keith gone? Ah, hiding at the back. So one thing I'd really like is a laser pointer. There's an accelerometer in this thing. We should be able to get a laser pointer. But you'd need the moire effect, the sort of aperture. So I was just wondering, maybe we could... Anyhow, just a bit of protocol support. So that's shipping in 4.0. Another fun thing, which seems entirely pointless, and well, might be, is that is logo integration. Logo being the latest language of choice. So it turns out you can write a logo interpreter in like 2 lines of Python. So we did that. And then you can draw pretty pictures with it. And actually, Laszlo, the reason he did this, and it's again a volunteer doing this, is that in Hungary there's some requirement that everyone should learn some kind of programming language. And that's a bit difficult on Windows, it's a bit of a pain. But if you have LibreOffice deployed everywhere, you don't really want to teach them Star Basic, honestly. And you don't want to teach them, some of these other things. But actually, Logo, where you can see this little turtle and move it around, and you can translate the commands. I know that's not to everyone's taste. But if you're Hungarian, having a Hungarian command for left, is more accessible to children. And yeah, so it looks pretty pretty. And he's built a nice sort of learn to program document that gets really some quite advanced drawings out of it. They look really, really attractive. So children can write, a few hundred lines, well, a few tens of lines, and get something really pretty. So that's cool. Of course, it's no good adding features if underneath it's all just totally disgusting, and there is quite a lot of yuck underneath. So one of the problems was always building LibreOffice. Well-meaning people would continually check things in that would then break other things. And this continues to this day. However, if you do that, you start getting spammed with emails that contain an entire build log. So pretty soon, your incoming thing is throttled, and all you can do is push the fix, So, so that's good. Hopefully this helps.
DOS the developer?
Do we what?
DOS the developer.
Yeah, basically, yeah, completely. Yeah, destroy their incoming mail system. So, so that's good. And we build now for loads and loads of platforms, Android, ARM, Android x86. We had Android MIPS for a while, which just shows you how dedicated we are. All of those Linux distributions. Windows, of course, is a major problem because fewer people actually use it, and it takes a long time to build. So again, Bytemark have donated some huge machines with massive CPUs, SSDs, coming out of every muscle and so on, and they can actually build in a couple of hours, which is quite good. So the buildability is much improved. If you check it out, it should build. Another thing we're doing is switching away from our custom patched version of DMake, a tool even more popular than I don't know, something really unpopular. CMake. Yeah, CMake is I guess looks like a precursor to DMake, doesn't it? But I'm assured it's much better. Anyhow, so we're switching to GNU-Make, which is great, except it turns out GNU-Make is not as maintained as you might hope. The last release was in 2010, and we have some critical bug fixes we're trying to get out. So if you know a GNU-Make maintainer, sort of encourage them in a vigorous way from me. One of the nice things about switching to GNU-Make is that we can now build almost all of LibreOffice's 10,000 plus files with a single GNU-Make instance. So you run one make, it loads all the dependencies, which takes maybe 20 seconds when you've done it all, which is quite a lot of data. And then we can parallel build almost everything. So if you can imagine a build where you do all of your pre-processing to start with, so all of the header building, all of the IDL compilation, all the stuff that you can't really parallelize, and then you can build every C file, C++ file in parallel, pretty much. So if you want to test your monster new piece of hardware, LibreOffice can provide some real 10,000 wide parallelism for your money, which is kind of cool. You should have racer races. The Gen 2 is faster than. Anyhow, lots of these people have helped do that, which is cool. Another thing we were lumbered with was a total lack of unit tests. So there was actually no way that you could really tell that the Office suite was going to work, having done all of these changes for 6 months. It's a bit of a problem. So now we have a whole load of unit tests. Marcus Mohar up the top, you may remember, did the nice calc features, did loads of work here. And yeah, there's just lots and lots of these. One of the interesting things we did was, after managing to get LibreOffice to bootstrap a small library and take a chunk of it and actually use it, which was really the problem, why no one had written any unit tests, was that you couldn't bootstrap the complicated component model, which was supposed to enable reuse, but in fact really hindered it. So once we fixed that, we could then start adding tests. And so people went a bit wild and added loads. And one of them we did was add all of the CVE documents from the past umpteen years. We thought we'd check that they are still fixed. About half of them had regressed. So the bug had reappeared in some form. So now pretty much every time you do a through build, you test all those CVE documents. And some of them are pretty cool. You can launch WordPad just by loading some of them on Windows, or you could. The only slight problem with that is that many of these show up on virus checkers as being the nightmares they are. So we have to sort of hash them in Git to allow people to check it out without problems. But yeah, so there's loads and loads of these tests being added, and in many cases, you saw the RTF improvements. Miklos is just a hero. Every time he fixes a bug, he'll check the document is correct, write test code for it, and then he'll do it so that you load the document, save the document, and load it again. Is it still there? Then we pass the unit test. So it's encouraging to see that. They're kind of hard to turn off every time you build. Pretty much everyone runs them. The tinderboxes are running them. It really gives us a lot of confidence. Another thing, I don't know how many people have used Gerrit. I think Gerrit's kind of cool. So Gerrit basically is a way of turning a OpenID account, Gmail, whatever, into SSH, sort of secure commit access to the Git repository. So anyone can commit anything to LibreOffice that has an OpenID account. And if you don't, and you're ideologically opposed to that, we have some people that are like that, I will set you up an account. It's not a problem. However, and it also goes to the mailing list. So we don't want web tooling to be the foundation of what we do. That would kind of suck, in my view anyway. So all of this is posted to the mailing list so people can see it and review it there. And yeah, it's pretty cool though, because it means that all of that patch application via email and things not applying and rebasing and so on can be done remotely by other people. And we also have test build integration. So Norbert's been working on this, and we're going to have a big build cluster to do this. But so you submit the stuff. Once someone's reviewed it, they'll say commit it, but only if it compiles on all platforms. And it just goes into a pipeline and eventually ends up rebased and shoved into master automatically, which is kind of really cool. So I encourage you to check out Gerrit if you're running a free software project. I'm sure it's broken and buggy in some ways, but it's really helped us improve the speed of patch integration. Another thing that we try and deal with is getting good feedback from people. So I don't know if you've ever used Bugzilla. It's not terribly user-friendly, I think it's safe to say. It is if you're a developer, maybe. But if you're an end user, the kind of person that's using LibreOffice, it's just impossibly confusing. So we have now a much simpler JavaScript flow, actually initially written by Loic, that then allows you to click the icon of your thing and select the type of component. And we're extending this hopefully to encourage people to do bisection and various other things that we've done. So we can auto-tag regressions if you can know the last version it worked in, so we can track regressions automatically, which is kind of nice. And it looks, well, I don't know if it looks pretty, but it looks a lot better than what you see on the new bug page there. So if people want to reuse that, Rob is maintaining it and doing a great job. I'd recommend it to you. And when you go File, Submit Feedback in LibreOffice, it takes you there and it should pre-populate many of the fields. So other things, yeah, don't build a huge ancient copy of Thunderbird as you compile. That's always a good tip. So now we just load the very, very simple file that's used for your Thunderbird address book. Yeah, so whilst adding all of these features, we managed to reduce our download size by about 20 megabytes, which is encouraging. We've ported lots of legacy. So LibreOffice code predates STL. If you've used STL, it predates many C++ features. And a lot of these we're improving by doing a standard way. So porting all of our legacy containers to STL, kind of nice. Lots of performance improvements, sort of all over the shop that help people feel it's actually responsive. So that's cool. One of the major things in 4.0, and this is all stuff in 4.0 incidentally that's shipping next week, hopefully. One of the things is UI improvements. So previously we've just really sucked with images. Whoever wrote the image interpolation thing was, just sort of subsampling or something crazy. And so now we're doing, something relatively sensible in every case, and you can also reduce the size of your images, so you don't want. Whoever invented the 1,000 megapixel camera, isn't it great? You do one click and it blows your whole SD storage, in a single shot. And then, to fit it on the screen, you do all of this work to scale it down again. And, well, anyhow, you can pre-scale it so that you're not doing that work as you present, which is kind of cool. Another nice thing that's happening is that the King Abdul Aziz City of Science and Technology, as well as a whole load of people from the Indian Navy, are working on getting right to left really right. So I don't know if you can see, I need my mouse pointer thing at this stage. So this plus button was simply just not there in Arabic. Your early object, if you dragged it right, it moved left, and if you dragged it left, it moved right. All of this good stuff, proper Arabic numbering. The presenter console, similarly, all sorts of horrendous mouse mirroring things. So lots and lots of nice detailed work going in to make this work in Arabic, which is cool. New template selection stuff, which is prettier than it used to be. Hopefully it'll make.
New templates?
Well, we have new presentation templates. My personal feeling is that most people want to theme colors instead of radically change the templates, and so to have one template per color sort of thing, it's kind of lame. So I think we'll be wanting to move to doing that theming stuff for templates. We don't do that yet. On the other hand, previously we were duplicating the template per language, whether it was translated or not. So some of the 20 meg saving in download is just that. So there's some nice bits there. When you have 100 languages, duplicating the template 100 times sucks a bit. Styles, trying to make those easier to use. We're constantly trying to stop people pressing the bold button. We have some more ideas about how to do that, but that's all encouraging. What else? Oh yeah, so widget layout was, if you used Java back in '95, it was there. I'm sure Smalltalk did everything. It did everything, right? So, I'm always amazed at the number of older computer scientists that come and tell me it was all been done, actually before computers were invented. But either way, there was a deliberate decision by the VCL toolkit people to not do layout. They knew it was there. They knew it was good. But there's this immortal quote that human layout is always going to be better than computer layout. And maybe that's true, but people don't go around and redraw each dialogue for 107 languages, it turns out. So we were always getting, characters chopped off, incredibly verbose dialogues that have all of this white space in. which you become sort of acclimatized to actually after a while, strangely. But the ever-expanding dialogue for the ever longer translation is just not such a good thing. So Quaylon at Red Hat's just done a fantastic job here. And we use the Glade file format now for editing these things. We still use VCL widgets. So inside it, there's actually no GTK widgets being used, except, I guess, the top-level windows are just for platform integration. But this is a long process. So far, we've got about 100 of these dialogues done. It's kind of easy, redrawing dialogues. If you want to get involved, it's a great place to start. I really encourage you. There's a lot more to do. So what else? Well, toolbars and menus and things, we're now integrating with, I guess, Unity, so pushing all of the menu and toolbar state up to the bar and to the funky, I forget, there's an awesome something or other that you can do something with. But anyway, all good stuff. And again, funded by Canonical, lots of good people doing things there. If instead you don't do that, you can have personas. I don't know if you've seen this Firefox thing where you customize your UI to add a funny picture of a bird in the top right. But it turns out that actually you wouldn't believe a company wanted us to do this for them, so we did it for them. Okay, so those are all things that are in 4.0. How am I doing for time? How are we coping? Yeah? 20 minutes? 13. Okay, I'll speed up. So here are some funky things that we're doing. The first thing is Android. So how can we ship on the platforms of the future? This is the trend for Windows, Google trend. This is the trend for Android. You look at the trend for iPad, it's even worse on iPhone. So we've been at least looking into, in our spare cycles, doing something here. Here's a terrible first hack. Here's a slightly better version. I might even have something up here I can show you, if you're lucky. Might even look a bit like that. So here it is. Here's the Android emulator in all its glory. And you can load your documents and flip your pages. Obviously, multi-touch on my laptop is not really quite what it could be. You can load your Visio files and render them, and hopefully it all just works and so on. So the Android version is coming along. It's a bit big at the moment. So yeah, well, there's a 50 megabyte size limit on APKs in the Google Play Store. So at the moment you have to download and install that yourself, but all the code's there in Git, and there's some very interesting problems on Android around native code. So yeah, if you want to do something fun, some real heavy lifting, there's some good things there. Let me see if I can make interactive collaboration work. I have some interesting problems around this, and I think, but let's see, it might actually work. So I'm not going to do a whole set up a telepathy session. It really uses telepathy. And in fact, I think I might have some slides explain what's going on. Yeah, let me do that before I do the demo. So here's actually an accurate drawing architecturally of the LibreOffice core. And if Jan Schmidt's talk on RepRaps had been still there, you could have seen some of the original code that I refactored in the control programs. There was indeed a class called Model View Controller, So he'd read the book, right? But not really, read the title anyway. One class. And indeed it did everything. So LibreOffice is not entirely like that. There are many different attempts to separate concerns, but they don't really work. So how then can we turn that quickly into something that does collaboration? So my thesis, and I've been trying to persuade people of this, is that ordering is king. It doesn't actually matter what you do to the document, because humans are quite clever, as long as you always do the same thing to everybody's document. And if you do this, then you can avoid all sorts of very clever composable operation things that do magic, but still run into the problem that when two people edit the same word, what do you do? There's still a conflict. So let the user deal with the conflicts and just do everything very simply in the same order. So what does that look like? Well, I guess it looks like that. So essentially when you type, nothing is applied to your spreadsheet. Actually, you completely sever the connection between your controller and your model. And you send those messages out to an instant messaging bus. And it turns out that if you use a Jabber chat room, one of the nice properties of that, which you would hope would be true, is that the messages go to everyone in the same order. So the conversation looks kind of sane to everyone. And then simply you reapply those messages in the order that they come in from the bus. So with a relatively reasonable, a relatively small hack, you can get something that works relatively nicely. Of course, that means that your editing is applied asynchronously. There may be a delay till you see something in the cell, but that doesn't need to block the client typically. It sucks in many ways, but the implementation is feasible in linear time. So there is a demo, thanks to these wonderful people from various different companies, and we'll see if the demo works. Almost certainly not, however. So we did this thing. And I now have 10 minutes. Thank you, sir. So anyway, so we can write, hello world here, and it appears there. Isn't that great? Actually, there's a very limited number of things that you can do here, so I love X org, something like this. Or, I forget, actually, yeah. Actually, there's very little else you can do. With a better demo, if I had prepared this more carefully, you could see how entering numbers, updates charts that you happen to have on both sides. But hopefully you see the general idea. I forget if we're printing interesting things on the console. No, just that accessibility didn't work. Fair enough. That's quite normal. But hopefully you get the idea, and I don't have any time, so we'll pretend that worked. Okay, excellent. LibreOffice Online. Yeah, so there's a chance that this will work a bit better. So, instead of rewriting the whole thing in JavaScript, we're just using the HTML5 canvas and using WebSockets and shoving compressed pings. So, as you change stuff, well, the update is relatively small. Let me see if I have a browser here. I don't. Okay, so let me try running the thing. Excellent, even better. And some people's demos are pre-canned. So here is LibreOffice. As you can see, you've got all this nice muck in the toolbar that is apparently a feature. And as I type this, you can do all sorts of fun things. So already I did something, wow, pagination, So that's pretty extraordinary. What you see is what you get. This is actually going to be on this page in this, when you print this document out, which is something you can't predict. Use Google Docs, it doesn't do pagination, sorry. All of that stuff is shoved out the side. And one of the reasons is that the web APIs are just sufficiently lame that you can't do that. And the other thing is, of course, they're not using the canvas, they're using CSS, great piles of it, to do most of what they're doing. So this is kind of nice, and what I'll just do is I'll turn on the re-rendering support. Actually, first I'll draw a smiley face, because I think that's important. And then as we're typing, we can see what's going on. So you can see the re-rendering, but actually what's really re-rendered is only the last character that you typed. And that's, of course, compressed as a ping and sent over the wire. So people say to me, this can't possibly scale. But then they also say you should rewrite 8 million lines of code into JavaScript. So, don't believe everything you hear. It can't possibly scale. So, here is Remote X, LibreOffice running for, well, lots of slightly anonymous users are actually active. They pressed a key or something, so they're using some CPU. But, yeah, we're getting some pretty good support on not massive machinery in Largo, Florida, currently day-to-day, every day. So if indeed rentive servers in the cloud are truly cheaper than buying a box and putting it on everyone's desk and then not using it using the box in the server farm, then then everything should be good. So getting involved, yeah, how can you get involved? My great hope is that someone here will think, cool, I could get involved and make a difference there. So we have an easy hacks page, lots of small things to get through the process barrier. So you can get a patch will be accepted, that does something useful, but it's not terribly complicated, but you can get set up with Gerrit, you can push it through and get it in. It's kind of cool. There's an easy hacks page there, which is good. There's Gerrit, as I mentioned previously. If you're into QA, we have a cool thing called bisect. So you can go to a bug that is a regression, and we have a Git repository of all of our binaries, all our binary releases. So you can check out binary releases and bisect them just by having this one repository. And so you can get down to about 20 commits of the actual bug without compiling anything, and without being an expert, programmer of any kind. So that's pretty cool. Maybe it takes 10 seconds to start, test the bugs there, exit, and run git bisect again. Another second to check out the next version, and that's pretty awesome. So just the brilliance of having someone say, you have a regression, it's in these 20 patches. It's just amazingly useful for development. So if you're not a developer, there are great things that we can do. Otherwise, just getting involved in testing 0.0 releases, master builds, and so on. So here are my conclusions. We're growing, we're executing, we're finally, hopefully, starting to make LibreOffice something that you don't have to be ashamed of and sort of hide and be embarrassed about. That isn't sort of a wart on the face of free software, but hopefully something that's fun to be involved with, a genuine community that's actually really making progress. And yeah, and really improving. Still a long way to go. There really is. We're really just at the beginning. And there's lots of new work for contributors to do. Improving the UI, 4.0 will have an incrementally better UI. We'd love to have help there. So please do get involved. And yeah, finally, thank you for your support. There's so many people in the Linux ecosystem that have made LibreOffice possible, from free desktop, guys to, all over the place. We have had help and support and encouragement, and we're deeply grateful for that. So thank you for helping make freedom something attractive. So that's my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. We have some time for some questions. I see a raised hand, so I'll just pass this over here.
The web version that you're showing,
Sure.
is that using the Broadway backend of GTK?
That is using the Broadway backend of GTK, yeah.
Okay, is that 3 or 2 or?
So that's GTK 3. So we do have a GTK 3 backend.
Yep.
It's not as polished as you might imagine. So embedding a video in there is going to cause some interesting problems. So typically we ship GTK 2, but we do have a GTK 3 backend. You have to enable it.
Did you do anything special to get the updates to show?
Oh yeah, that's inside our code. We just draw a beaver. I press 9 and it draws a red box. Yeah.
Looking around, any hands? There's a hand. Very good.
But it's a really good question because some of the drawing, when we get the microphone, some of the drawing you see is just doing massive damaging for no good reason. And so hacking these few things out made big differences.
The UNO stuff going on inside, has
Sure.
that been refactored, or is that as fun as it always has been?
So UNO was always promoted as the way to develop for OpenOffice. And I think it was just a profound mistake. UNO could do one thing well, and we're trying to move to making it as a scripting binding that works well. And I think it can do that. The problem is that it's being used to try and make a threading model something that doesn't really work, but it brings the sort of locking superstition in. So, it's going to be threaded, so why not add some locks, Create new locks, but with no lock hierarchy, start taking them, releasing them everywhere, particularly hold them whilst emitting events, that's important. Anyway, so there's just lots of disasters around that, and we're trying to remove those. And some of the UNO components we sort of decomponentized, some of the extensions we've de-extensionized to make part of the core. And so, the tragedy is that UNO is actually more complicated than the things it wraps, typically. It's actually harder to use, unless you're using a Python or, BASIC. Just get stuck into the core. It's really easier. So, shoot.
Hi, if I want to contribute funds to getting a bug fixed.
Awesome.
Sorry, this is not. Unfortunately, I can't contribute the legwork, but what's your recommended process for doing that?
Yeah, sure. So there's lots of ways we can do that. There are a number of individuals around the project that would be interested in one-on-one contracting. If you have a small budget, so we have relatively cheap people in cheap locations. The Slovenian student who's graduated and wants something to do. We have bigger professional consulting organizations like Lanido, Collabora, or CodeThink, or these kind of people charge more, but potentially give you a quicker, better result. And then there's people like SUSE who are very hard to deal with, or Red Hat, Canonical, who traditionally have a product-focused thing and then do a bit of NRE on the side, and it's just hard dealing with big companies. So what I'd really like to encourage is for you to find people in this room who are interested in fixing stuff in Australia, and get someone in your time zone with the right skills. And there was someone here actually yesterday who hacks on FontForge and those things. So that's what yes, this man over here asking a question. So this guy's cool, give him some money and he'll fix your bug. That would be my, So really, part of my job in SUSE is going around and trying to give business to other people to build an ecosystem that is sustainable and will just grow and be exciting. And it's often easy to fix things that, is that?
Sorry, I have one.
Go for
Trainers.
Trainers. Okay, so another thing we're trying to do is we're trying to certify people. So we have a certification program so that actually when you hire a developer, you're reasonably confident they can fix something. So we're certifying developers. We're trying to certify trainers as well, but they have funny concerns around ownership of training materials and stuff, and that's still going on. I think that's perfectly legitimate, but that circle hasn't been squared, so that you would know how do you certify trainers? Either way, they're in a huddle trying to solve that problem. If you want to solve that problem with them, there was a guy behind you nodding about trainers. Maybe he is a trainer, I don't know, the Nike of the LibreOffice world. And so I don't have a good answer. I don't know people in Australia. Someone here probably will.
I have a question.
Oh, wow.
Has there been much development in internationalisation, translations, etc.?
Sure. So I think we had 107 languages for 3.6. I think the number has gone up. Maybe it's 110. We're kind of at the upper limit of, we can always do more. The Arabic is doing better. Yeah, Klingon, One of the problems is there's really a lot of strings in LibreOffice. It's not shorter than, many of them unused, so it's just great, So we're trying to garbage collect some of those, but that creates interesting problems. So translations are improving. I think right to left support is probably a much bigger issue for a whole swathe of, Near Eastern languages. But it's something. We use a Pootle server, so almost anyone can go in, log in, and start helping out with that. It should be easy to get involved. Sorry, Orange.
With that, you said that there was a method for debugging down to the within a couple of patches. That you didn't have to compile.
That's correct.
Does that involve you downloading a copy of that binary, or is that done over the web?
That's a great question. Basically, what you do is you download a Git repository, and depending on which one you choose, it could be about 4 gigs small. On the other hand, for that to have several thousands of LibreOffice installs inside it, is I think a testament to Git's ability to pack stuff small, even if it's weird binary files. So basically that gives you a live checkout. LibreOffice is one of the unusual applications that actually relocates.
Check it out before you leave the uni.
Right, so you can run it from anywhere virtually, and all the libraries find each other, and it just works. So basically you run your Git checkout, and the git bisect command is just that, and you paste the output of git bisect, and we can tell, within 20 patches, and usually in those 20 commits, it's obvious which one is the one that affects that module, So, and the tragedy is that even when you read the patch, it's not quite clear how it can cause that a knock-on effect. So, in some cases, the coupling is so severe in the code that just a slight change to holding a reference a bit longer than you ought to, and suddenly life cycle goes to pot, and something crashes. But we are working hard to improve these cases. Does that help explain the by-bisect thing? I mean, it's a very simple concept. I don't know of other projects doing that, but probably there are.
It's still a pretty big download.
It is a pretty big download. There are smaller downloads depending on what range you want to test in. So if your regression is in a smaller range, I imagine we can do that. But if you want to get involved, making those smaller and so on, I'm sure Git could do an even better job, because really the changes aren't that huge, often between commits.
And one more question.
From behind.
Somebody who I know is a very heavy LibreOffice user.
Excellent.
When will the Android apps come out for the LibreOffice?
When will the Android
apps?
Will the apps?
Yeah.
As in, when will it be in the Android App Store?
No, so that we can read LibreOffice document with it. At the moment, you have to use some other application to view it in your Android phone or something.
Yeah. So the question I heard was, when will the Android app ship? And like any kind of shipping date question, I don't know. Clearly the phone thing will be shipping with 4.0, so you'll be able to get your remote control working pretty soon. But that's actually very, very thin, pure Java app. All the rendering is done on your laptop, which has all the acceleration and stuff you need to make these things quickly. So it's actually very, very dumb. It's a very, very simple protocol. It happens to do something useful. Actually getting all of the rendering code done. I mean, the sadness is that the vast majority of the heavy lifting is done. The viewer is there, you can demo it, it renders a whole load of files. It's now really about slimming down the code. And the problem is there's not really any good profiling tools there. So I happen to be writing one with Mark Wheelard at Red Hat, which basically takes your dwarf debugging information, and then tries to build a call grind tree dump of that. So in kcache grind you can see which inlined methods are consuming all your space, or which pieces of code, often auto-generated, are making things too big. So there's some work to do that. But if people have clever ideas, I mean, games can download gigabytes of textures on Android, so we should be able to do something. But it's basically the size. That's all.
All right, I'm conscious of time, so we'll have to end it there. Thank you very much, Michael Meeks. That was absolutely fantastic.